I'm sitting down here having some tea because I'm trying to recover from being a little bit sick right now, but I'm okay. I'm okay. I'm all right. I'm all right. I'm okay. Hard to believe. That's what I want to talk about. That expression. I was thinking about something. Whenever I think about something, I think about some things that are hard to believe and some things that are easy to believe. And when you think of something that's hard to believe, you kind of think of something that's not true. And something that's easy to believe, you think of as something that's probably true or something that's likely to occur. But there have actually been studies. There's something called cognitive fluency. Things that are easy to think of or easy to believe are perceived as being true. And things that are hard to think of, hard to imagine, we generally tend to think those things are false. But that's not always true. It's not always true. I was thinking about something. When objects from space enter into the Earth's atmosphere, they get very hot. I was thinking about space capsules. The other day I saw one of the Gemini capsules. Actually, I shouldn't say the other day. It was a few months ago. I was at a museum. And I know many years ago, seeing here in Chicago, we have actually we have one of the Gemini capsules and one of the Apollo 8 capsule, the first one to orbit the moon. And it's at the Museum of Science and Industry, and one other one is at the planetarium. But I was thinking about the fact that, I always thought that those things, when they come into the Earth's atmosphere, they become very hot because of the friction. Those things rubbing against the air. The air of tremendous speed and friction. But in fact, it turns out it's not the friction that actually creates the heat. It has to do with the fact that the air gets compressed in front of the thing, when it's coming in so fast. And that creates heat. It's a different explanation than what I had sort of assumed was true. Sometimes things, you have to think about it. And it requires some explanation. And I know if you go to NASA's website, they explain that stuff in details, how it works. And you can go to some other science person who could explain it in a lot more details. I'm not that much into it, but it's just interesting that things don't quite work the way you might have originally figured it out, even was taught it in some ways. But we're taught certain things. When you're taught something over and over and over, and you keep imagining it, it becomes easy to think of. Even if it's false. Even if it's false. You could be taught some historical fact. And then you find out later it's not true. There's no documented evidence to support that particular fact. But we perceive it as being true because it was repeated. Advertisers do this little thing, and I always think about advertisers because, when you see a commercial, you see it over and over and over. And I've heard people quote stuff from commercials as if the commercials were an absolute source of knowledge about things. No, advertisers want you to know or believe what they put in front of you. But that's not only true with advertisers, that's just true with anybody. People can tell you, oh, I'm your friend, you can trust me. I'm your friend, you can trust me. And they keep saying it over and over and over again. And it becomes easy to believe until one day you actually have to trust them. And then you discover, to your surprise, that you really can't trust them. I used to have this at work. With people who would tell me, oh, Philip, you can trust me. I would never take things from you. I would never steal from you. I would never do this. And I had people telling me that over and they would even emphasize it. They would go out of their way to tell me that they wouldn't steal things from me. They wouldn't take things. And then I caught them in the act of actually stealing things. It's like, what? I'm like surprised because this person kept saying this over and over again. They emphasized it and they made a big deal out of it. When moments like that happen, you say, wow, it was hard to believe that that person would do that to me. Why was it hard to believe? Well, it comes down to this thing called cognitive fluency. Sometimes an ideal is repeated. Not an observation, not something you're actually taking in through your senses, But just the repetition of a thought, an ideal, is just repeated. And you hear it so much that after a while you don't even think about it anymore. You just take it as a matter of fact that, of course, this person is going to be honest. Of course they're not going to steal from me, because they said it, and they put so much emotion into it, and they were very emotional about how, even if I had any doubts, they say, well, how could you doubt me? How could you doubt me, Philip? Okay, all right, I won't doubt you anymore. And then they surprise you. That happens sometimes. It happens. Things that are hard to believe aren't always false. And things that are easy to believe aren't always true. It's just something to think about.